Greetings, everyone. Here are the main points of the video. The shadow of Cairo S, a covert battalion scorching Russia, is bringing the flames of war to Putin's doorstep. Terrifying, 64,000 UA about Ukrainian UAV raids. Russia's rear is being devastated at an unprecedented speed. A terrifying scene in the outskirts of Belgorod. Infrastructure has collapsed, and the Russian border city has fallen into disaster. The rear is fractured, and Russians are chaotically fighting at gas stations amid a fuel shortage nightmare. Welcome to the analysis program of Luan Banqiansu. Before we begin, please like the video and subscribe to the channel so we can keep going. Thank you, dear audience. Cairo S, a small but fierce force, is bringing war to Russia and bringing the flames of war to Putin's doorstep. Ladies and gentlemen, the flames of war have officially crossed the border, knocked on the doors of the Kremlin, and completely burned away any illusions of a safe rear area for Russia. Behind these fierce blows, which have seriously damaged the prestige of Russian leader Vladimir Putin, both at home and on the international stage, is an invisible but ruthless entity. The covert Cairo S battalion, belonging to UAV Brigade 414, is known as Maria's Birds. Operating entirely in the shadows and never once appearing before the media, this unit enforces strict ironclad discipline to ensure absolute secrecy in this asymmetric war. The soldiers must completely abstain from alcohol, keep the nature of their work secret even from family and friends, and regularly undergo polygraph tests to prevent any risk from information leaks. Their strategic goal is not just to wear down enemy forces, as the battalion commander, codenamed Day, told the Times. They are working to drive the cost of war for Moscow to an unbearable level, forcing the opponent to accept a genuine peace, accompanied by a heavy implicit warning sent directly to the Kremlin's leader. Kairos's long-range unmanned aerial vehicles, named after the god of opportunity in decisive moments in Greek mythology, are rewriting the definition of battlefield boundaries. These inanimate weapons do not distinguish between an oil refinery, a strategic port, or the supreme power center in Moscow. This tactic's brutal effectiveness was shown when thick black smoke from a burning oil refinery once shrouded the skies over the Russian capital. A similar incident occurred in St. Petersburg, where international delegates at the Economic Forum watched helplessly as the city's main oil and gas port was consumed by fire. The company commander in charge of the launch pad, with the codename Panama, affirmed that they are making history with their own hands, turning the once boastful words about a lightning campaign to occupy Kiev in 3 days into a bitter reality, as Russia itself is now burning. Justice has truly manifested itself through relentless retaliatory strikes occurring almost daily, as Ukrainian long-range attacks penetrate deep into Russian territory and medium-range strikes sweep across the occupied regions. The seamless coordination between Cairo West and allied units, combined with Ukraine's new generation of cruise missiles, has created a pincer movement that is strangling the enemy's logistical lifelines. The conflict map shows oil and gas facilities and factories producing precision components for missiles. The production of propellant fuel and strategic depots spread across 12 provinces of the Russian Federation has been destroyed. With UAVs capable of flying up to 1,500 kilometers from the border, today's military technology has stripped away the privilege of bombing other countries while remaining completely safe. The attack unfolded dramatically in the sunset light as sunset light fell on each UAV. One by one, they left the launch pad, jet stages blazing before falling as propellers started, leaving swirling smoke clouds and the scent of sulfur and charcoal in the air. Before striking Moscow with thunderous blows, the unit spent 2 months patiently dismantling and neutralizing the entire air defense system on the outskirts of Russia's capital. The strategic calculations of the unit's commander showed that over about 200 days of continuous operations, with around 200 targets hit, the battalion had put the Russian military leadership in a critical dilemma. If the Kremlin decided to withdraw equipment to establish a dense air defense shield around the capital, they would immediately expose critical gaps in other strategic areas, especially the Crimean Peninsula. He himself and Panama are living witnesses from the darkest moments of history. On the first day of the war, when they were just ordinary civilians with no military experience, they bravely rushed to defend the office of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky against the advance of the notorious Wagner mercenaries. From the extreme fear in those life-and-death moments, they joined the elite special forces, participating in the most intense raids and fierce operations to defend their country. The journey of this unit is deeply marked by international integration and the transfer of top-level military knowledge. Dye was then sent to the U.S. Army military base at West Baden as a liaison officer, where he deeply absorbed the deep strike UAV programs through courses from NATO. When he returned, he proposed forming a specialized battalion inspired by VOP-D, commander of Ukraine's unmanned combat forces. Cross-border connections kept enhancing the unit's effectiveness with top strategic intelligence. From British partners, Kiros was able to play a key role in the unit's long-range airstrike operations compared to the previous period, with long-range strikes increasing fourfold and medium-range strikes soaring up to 28 times. The essence of these rapid victories is turning Kiros into a magnet for talent. From Britain, the US, Europe, and even Japan. 64,000 Ukrainian soldiers are returning from the US and Europe for international integration. Ukraine faces historic challenges as Russia's rear front is being surrounded faster and on a larger scale than ever in technological warfare. All top-level military transfer protocols. Please click subscribe so you don't miss any exciting videos. The TAN unit is a prominent example of harsh international integration, as Ruslan Pukov, director of the Center for Analysis of Strategies and Technologies in Moscow, frankly exposed. The Russian leader made a fatal strategic mistake by naively believing that the transition to a war of attrition was in Russia's favor. That complacency not only failed to subdue Kiev, but on the contrary, inadvertently gave Ukraine a golden period to activate and operate its massive defense industrial machine, specializing in advanced defensive weaponry. On the contrary, it inadvertently gave Ukraine a golden opportunity to activate and operate its massive defense industrial machine, specializing in deep strike offensive weaponry. Now, the illusion of a peaceful life, far from the flames of war, for the Russian people has been completely shattered as the war has come back to strike at the heart of their homeland. It is vividly manifested through the blazing fires at oil refineries, the looming fuel crisis, long lines of vehicles waiting at gas stations, and an air defense system being stretched to its very last reserves. The well-known Financial Times has recently published shocking figures proving an unprecedented and intense campaign aimed at choking the country's energy infrastructure. The report highlights a breakthrough technological leap by Ukraine. Luma Stefan described it as unprecedented. The report points out a breakthrough leap, with the German Foreign Affairs Council noting that this marks a historic transformation, helping Kiev achieve complete independence in mass-producing long-range drones. This boom is reflected in Russian defense data, as Moscow authorities have admitted they had to struggle to intercept a massive number of unmanned aircraft, reaching an enormous scale. Aircraft in just the first 6 months across Russian territory in eastern Ukraine. The pressure has been intensely focused in the last 2 months, with statistics showing more than 14,000 drones in May and nearly 18,000 in June. According to the expert at the Bear Flood Star Love organization, in May alone, the intelligence network recorded a historic record with 16 attacks around the integration of military logistics facilities. Since the peak until now, this core energy system has been hit at least 190 times, which is an explosive increase. 11 times higher than the same period last year, creating a real logistical nightmare for Moscow's war machine. The tremendous pressure from this airstrike campaign is pushing Russia's air defense network into a state of extreme strain, facing the risk of exhaustion. It is shaking the ability to protect the nation's vital resources, military assets, and essential energy supplies. Moscow is being drawn into a terrifying vortex of attrition and financial drain, as it is forced to pour its last massive resources into maintaining its shield in the sky. The capacity to produce weapons and long-range missile warheads simply cannot keep up with the demand. Please subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any updates.
Đêm kinh hoàng tại Belgorod.
International pressure and the encirclement by the UAV swarm are overwhelming the enemy. The horror at Rose outpost, collapsing infrastructure, and Russian border cities falling into disaster. The campaign to bring the war home, following the Ukrainian military's tactics, continues with a ferocity that is devastating, completely breaking the logistics links and pushing Moscow's entire security and energy systems into a state of red alert. This is the most powerful evidence yet. It is destructive, completely breaking the logistics links and pushing Moscow's security and energy systems into a state of red alert. There were explosions and chaos. The firestorm of bombardment directly hit critical infrastructure, plunging many residential areas into isolation and completely cutting off the supply of clean water, pushing the lives of local people into disaster. The most serious losses occurred during the peak of this attack. The city of Trin Truongthan played a crucial role in integration. According to independent intelligence sources, the main target destroyed was the Belgorod Main Gas Pipeline Management Bureau, a vital branch for gas transmission. According to independent intelligence sources, the main target destroyed was the Belgorod Main Gas Pipeline Management Bureau, a core branch of Gazprom Chajka Moscow LLC, which is part of the ecosystem of the giant National Energy Corporation, PZSC Gazprom. This is actually the main coordination warehouse with military involvement. Please subscribe to GNME Go to not miss any videos. It manages the entire trunk pipeline network and ensures the vital flow of natural gas for all industrial and civilian activities in the region. Under public pressure and due to the seriousness of the incident, the local authorities had to immediately speak up, even though they deliberately suppressed information about the extent of the damage. The governor of Belgorod province, Mr. Vyacheslav Lakov, admitted that the city had just endured an unprecedented missile attack, leading to a terrifying fire at an industrial facility and causing power outages and disruptions in the district. This official's refusal to name the attacked facility highlights the Kremlin's desperate attempt to hide its strategic infrastructure's vulnerability from the public. However, Belgorod is not the only victim in this bloody and fiery chess game. Not long before, Ukrainian defense forces also carried out a bold long-range attack, breaking the uneasy truce. Ukrainian defense forces also carried out a long-range strike, integration and industrialization in Zaroslav city. At the same time, the explosions echoed symbolically. Please subscribe to the GNME Go channel so you don't miss any exciting videos. The troops attacked St. Petersburg, the northern capital and Vladimir Putin's birthplace. Here, Kiev's drones breached all defenses to destroy a strategic oil depot at the city's seaport. The breakthrough and journey of maturity marked by fire at the city's seaport. The climax of the escalation and the transfer of responsibility to Russia is when Moscow steps up, forcing Ukraine for the first time to deploy a domestically produced long-range ballistic missile in a direct attack on the Moscow capital region. Although Kiev maintains strategic silence and has not issued any official confirmation regarding the use of this weapon of mass destruction, the reality on the ground has revealed an undeniable truth. The Ukrainian military is conducting an extremely effective campaign of asymmetric warfare, continuously launching highly precise and coordinated strikes deep into Russia's rear areas. These sharp, stealthy attacks not only destroy warehouses and depots, but also disrupt supply lines,
ở sâu trong hậu phương nước Nga.
Logistics and strategic supply chains, which are the only support for the occupying army's war machine. With the rear lines fractured, the Russians are panicking at gas stations due to the nightmare of fuel shortages and Ukraine's strategic drone strikes. Ukraine's direct attacks on Russia's core oil refineries are putting tremendous pressure on them.
Ác mộng thiếu hụt nhiên liệu.
The domino effect not only cripples Russia internationally as Ukraine's drones hit core oil refineries, but also disrupts the country's stable social structure. The biting fuel crisis is pushing Russian people into a harsh reality, where they have to stand in long lines at stations across the country every day just to exchange for every drop of fuel and take risks. That chaotic fighting is most vivid and tragic in the rear, reviving the nightmare of fuel shortages. The supply is nearing a historic disaster. In areas hundreds of kilometers from the center of Chita City, long lines of vehicles stretch eerily along the roadsides, creating scenes of exhaustion as people have to wait for days on end. The severe material shortages have quickly sparked unrest. These scenes of exhaustion show people waiting in despair for 3 days and nights. The collapse of social order and civil morality has turned gas stations into violent arenas full of anger. The situation has become even more tense as local authorities implement a privileged distribution system for government vehicles. This inadvertently creates opportunities for local officials to openly take advantage, further deepening the hardships faced by ordinary people. A focal point of public outrage within Russian society occurred in Chita, when authorities decided to openly cut the line, trampling on the patience of ordinary people. Soldiers participating in military service in Ukraine, along with their families, were placed on a priority list that let them skip the line. This seemingly compassionate and respectful gesture by the armed forces has actually been used as a tool to manipulate public opinion, quietly fueling smoldering public anger. Those who are directly suffering the consequences of a war they never chose are feeling increasing resentment. Please subscribe to the channel for the latest updates. That level of tension has led to clashes, where the line between order and survival has become more fragile than ever. For example, at a QU West gas station in Tordinsky, Vladimir Botoev, 36, pushed to the front of a line after 5 hours of waiting, acting aggressively. Outrage over breaking international protocols and transferring global knowledge. And the tension was so high that the officer had to draw his gun as a warning. Botoev had to withdraw before this individual was arrested on serious criminal charges of insulting and assaulting law enforcement officers. Meanwhile, domestic media and social networks were filled with raw footage of violent incidents, such as a brawl between three local women at a Tayboy gas station and fights between female drivers over access to the pump, causing tension for staff and bystanders. There was even a large-scale brawl involving many people that broke out right at the border area with Bashkortostan for unclear reasons, highlighting the bitter reality that when vital energy resources are squeezed, internal conflicts in Russia erupt into a fierce struggle for survival. From the data of these incidents, according to strategic analysts, Ukraine is waging war deep inside Russia using long-range UAV swarms and international intelligence cooperation. The process of international integration and technology transfer, as well as the exchange of knowledge,